I'm delighted to have Aly Pain, our acclaimed family conflict expert and professional certified coach, back today. Aly is known for her powerful insight and compassionate approach to parenting, drawing on her extensive experience to guide parents through the trials and tribulations of raising adolescents. Aly's commitment to helping families navigate tough conversations, set healthy boundaries, and foster strong relationships is truly inspiring. Today, Aly shares her valuable expertise on an incredibly important topic: how to model healthy conflict for your teenagers. Welcome back to the show, Aly.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So let's start off then. Could you please start by explaining why it's so important for parents to model healthy conflict resolution for their teenagers?
Absolutely. It actually is really simple. You cannot have a healthy and successful relationship without conflict. There you go. You cannot have, if you do not have conflict, what science can prove is without conflict, there's no growth. Without conflict, there's no change. Now, change can be scary for sure, but if we don't have the emotional tools and the comfort level, because let's face it, conflict is uncomfortable, then we're not likely to wade into conflict. And when we're not modeling this for our teenagers, we're running the risk of setting their relationships up to fail because they will model whatever you have modeled. So it's really, really important for our kids to have this safety and knowledge that conflict is not going to set their hair on fire, and that actually conflict can be a good thing even when it feels hard.
Oh God, like you are just, I feel like I'm the one who needs to be in therapy right now because I hate conflict. I hate it. I
Yeah,
avoid it at all costs.
yes.
I realize that I have modeled this for my teenagers. So it sounds like maybe parents need to do some work first before they can maybe model for their teenagers.
Absolutely. And this isn't about like dissing anybody or your parents or whatever you came from. It's that it's likely whatever you learned about conflict is doing one of two things. It's either continuing to play out now that you are a parent, parenting teens, or you've done a 180. So here's an example. If you came from a home that was highly authoritarian, so it was, I mean, you might have got a smack if you even questioned your parents, let alone were back talking or pushing against very hard set rules. And authoritarian parenting had conflict show up where it was loud. You may have felt afraid or scared, and that your parents were likely doing anything they could to control, be right, or maintain power over. And that means with each other or with you. So that's what conflict might have looked like. And so now you are fearing conflict, but you're doing it by trying to consistently shut it down. Do whatever it takes to shut it down. Get louder, get bigger, get stronger, get meaner, whatever it takes, just shut it down. And I know you're doing this to feel safe. I understand that. Or you might be going the other way, which is conflict was bad and scary and loud, and I don't want that. So we're just going to paste a smile on this thing because we are not doing conflict here. And so now we're doing this whole conflict avoidance thing. They both come from fear. They're just two very different ways of now showing up with it. So absolutely having a look at what conflict was. When you hear me say the word conflict, when you're listening, what is the first thing that comes to mind? That's a great place to start.
Oh, for me, it's absolutely avoid, 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 run away from it. So, and this actually adds a whole new layer into this, even for me sitting here having this conversation with you, is it really does drive home the point that it's very important to address your own demons because it's
Mm-hmm.
so helpful for your kids when you tackle them head on, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's okay to be afraid of conflict. It's okay. You don't have to like pretend you're dancing. We're not into pretending. We're not doing that. Like dancing through the meadow of roses. That's not what we're doing. The key here is letting yourself know, because this is where we get triggered. And the definition of triggered is when your younger self in your psyche shows up, hijacks the show, and you go, what am I doing? It's like having an out of body response to something that you go, I don't even know. That's a trigger. So your little self, which this is not woo woo, this is like psychologically proven, your little self is repeating whatever it knew or trying to likely avoid what it knew. So for you to say, okay, even though conflict was loud and scary, maybe there was violence, maybe things got broken in your home as a child, for you, when you feel conflict coming, and we all know what's the red flag for you, because you have a red flag, whether it's sweaty palms, dry mouth, a heart beating out of your chest pains, headache, whatever it is, the first thing you need to let yourself know is I'm safe. You don't have to wade into the conflict, but we don't have to run away like our hair's on fire either. We got to let ourselves know I'm safe. I'm safe. And same if your reaction is to avoid, we can say, I'm safe. I'm safe. I am here right now in this house. We do this like the 5, like notice. What are 5 things you notice? What do you see around you? What do you notice in you? What do you notice happening for you? What are, just to ground yourself, you're safe. You're safe. So that's about the taking ownership, because when you do that, guess what you're doing? You're modeling that exact same thing for your teenager. That this might feel hard and yucky, but you are also safe. So my hands
So also
are
though,
not.
so I guess we could model it with our partner in the house and other
Right.
people, but maybe a good place to start is the conflicts we have with our teens.
Yes. Yeah. And because I mean, hello, if you're a parent, you're welcome to conflict. Like it doesn't, they're 2 years old, you've got conflict, right? Um, so modeling that, sort of take a breath, because breathing is the fastest way to calm your nervous system. And often in conflict, we stop breathing or we breathe really shallow. So take a breath, just take a breath. And in that moment, you can say to yourself in your head, I'm safe. And maybe you let your teen know, okay, this feels hard for me. I'm just letting myself know I'm safe, because as you may or may not have known, your kids may not know this, when I grew up, conflict was really scary and I don't want that for us. I'm safe, you're safe. And then we get to, you just got to pause for a sec, because our brains do relationship at nanosecond speed, faster than our intellectual brain can keep up with. This doesn't go well for us. So it's about taking a breath and sort of doing like the talking stick, which is an indigenous tool, which is so powerful, is that only the person who has the stick can talk. And so it stops the escalation of interruption and assumption, which our brains do naturally. And again, don't go well for us. So only one person's talking at a time, that we hear each other, which is not about agreeing. We hear each other. And when our brains can process and articulate what we're feeling in the frustration and anger, that naturally de-escalates. It begins to regulate our emotions so that we can be in a safer conversation, not a dangerous conflict.
Yeah. And things might go off the rails too,
Oh,
right?
for
Like you might
sure.
revert to bad,
Yes,
former bad habits and all of that.
yes.
So how important is it to be able to apologize to your teen when things do go south? Well, maybe you took it south.
Right, 100%. Like we all need to give each other the compassion and grace to be less than perfect. Because God forbid, like I don't know about you, but I'm not in the game of being perfect. Tried that, it almost took me out. So it's not, no. I think it's totally fine. Our brains are reactive. Our emotional brain is reactive. That's its whole, it actually reacts faster than your intellectual brain, as I said. So this takes practice. It's like working out a muscle. So when you notice yourself going down a path of either avoiding, I'm looking at you, either avoiding or going to control and power over and louder and bigger, it is okay to go back to your teen and say, you know what? Wow, this is what I've noticed. And the key here is one word: ownership. Take ownership. Conflict wants us to project you. Conflict really works well when we take ownership. So take ownership and say, look, I'm sorry. Maybe you don't say I'm sorry. Maybe you're pissed at them, and that's okay too. Maybe you say, you know what? I don't love how I did that. I understand how I just did that may have had an impact with us. Could we have a do-over? Do you have space for me to do this over? Yeah, for sure.
I love it. Well, once again, you've crawled inside of my brain, Aly. So thank you for that. And I hope you've crawled into a few other parents listening to this as well. I want them to be able to connect with you. And obviously you have a lot of steps for parents to get through this on your website. So where's the best place for people to connect?
You can find me on social media at Aly Pain, Alypain, or my website, alypain.com. Under the blog, there's tons of free tools and resources to get started.
All right. Incredible. Thank you so much for joining me today, Aly.
Thanks so much.